I love this. We have people from all over the world.
So,
France,
Joe, you were able to see them, yes? So,
China. Amazing.
this is Ali Azzeddin from Fourth Generation for Education. You've been watching us since 10 a.m. in the morning in Dubai timing. I think now it's the 7 p.m. 7 session, all related to positive discipline in French, in Arabic, in English. I'm so happy and so honored to have Dr. Jane Nelsen with us today. And the other speaker who've been involved with us, Izumi and Philippe. Thanks also for being here. I'm going to give the lead to Joy, as she will be our moderator today. And she has some few questions for Dr. Jane, for Mahshid, for Fatima. I hope you are going to enjoy the session. I will stay now in the backstage, stop talking. It was a very long day for me. And then enjoy. I'm so excited.
Thank you, Ali. So I want to thank you, Ali and Stefan, for organizing this amazing day for everyone. And I hope that everyone has been able to attend multiple sessions. And if you haven't, you can watch the recordings. If you didn't see my session earlier today, I'm Joy Marchese. I'm the founder of Positive Discipline UK and co-founder of iGrow Co. And I'm here in London. So I'm so excited to be with all of you. And I'd like to introduce our panelists. First, we have Dr. Jane Nelsen, who is the creator, the founder of Positive Discipline, along with Lynn Latz. And Jane is in California. She's a California licensed marriage and family therapist and co-author of over 16 positive discipline books, including the Positive Discipline Parenting Tools with her daughter Mary and her son Brad. And she's developed numerous experiential training manuals for parents, teachers, couples, and for businesses. She's also a mother of 7, a grandmother of 22, and she's up to 18 great grandchildren. It's just incredible. And now,
Joy, you should mention the book you co-authored with me.
True. Jane and I did co-author along with Christina Bill, Positive Discipline for Today's Busy and Overwhelmed Parents, which I think is very, very relevant for what people are going through at the moment. And Jane is also, she now spends her time developing new programs, still writing, still sharing her wealth of knowledge and experience as a keynote speaker and a workshop leader throughout the world. So thank you for joining us, Jane. And then we have Mahshid Fattahi, who is calling in. She has been, thank you for joining us, Mahshid. She's been active in various educational roles for over 30 years. She's the founding head teacher of the international section of the German Embassy School in Tehran. She was first introduced to positive discipline in 2016 when we met in Dubai, and she has been passionately spreading its philosophy ever since. Thank you for joining us today. And we have Fatima Shibani, who is a mother of 4. She's been in the field of education for over 16 years. And she started as a teacher in the British International School in Jeddah, where she worked for 11 years. And for the past 5 years, she has been working for Nün Academy as the deputy head teacher and has been responsible for launching the positive discipline curriculum and approach across the school. And I'd like to share, because I feel really honored that I was there for the opening of Nün Academy 5 years ago. And since its inception, Nün Academy has adopted the positive discipline approach because of how well it aligns with their values and the prophetic tradition. It's just incredible. They've been doing it since day one. And Fatima has been developing and supporting teachers. It's been one of her main roles. And she's been helping to change the culture of the faculty and parents, which has not been an easy task. And she's here today to share her journey with us. So thank you, Fatima, for joining us. And we also, hopefully you guys have been able to meet today and see the sessions by Izumi and Philippe, who are both in Geneva, Switzerland. Thank you for joining us. I don't have your bios with me to share, so because it was you guys came on in the last minute, so I apologize. But you can read more about them. And what we're gonna be doing today is I have some general questions that have been brought forth to us that people have asked, and I'll open that up to anyone to answer. And then there are some specific questions that people have wanted to know based on your experience. So I might ask some of you specific questions, but if anyone in the group has some great information to share and to add on, then please do. So we're going to get started so that we can answer as many of these questions as possible. And Jane, I'm going to start with you if that's okay, because I know that we have people from all corners of the earth. I mean, it's just incredible how global positive discipline is and how far it's reached. And people would like to know, Jane, first of all, why is positive discipline so universal? What makes it so universal? And how does it fit into all cultures? So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, first of all, you know how surprised I am that it has become relatively popular or accepted in any country and in many, many countries. And the only thing I can guess is that, people have told me that the principles are so basically fitting with all cultures, just those basic things of love and dignity and respect for everyone and kind and firm, helping people. I think this whole thing of kind and firm is what so many of us have been searching for, because we've been given the only two alternatives, either too kind to be permissive, and which is not effective long-term, even though parents do it in the name of love, nor being too firm, which is punitive. And thinking, I thought there were only those two alternatives in the beginning. And so to know that there is something that really fits and helps us to enjoy being a parent or a teacher much, much more. But the other thing is, I think that when we do the experiential activities, where people get to learn from their own experience and express it in their own language, that combination, I just think is so universal, even for those who say, oh, I don't want to role play. I just want to hear a lecture. But once they get into it, I mean, I've had so many people say, you've spoiled me for all this process, because now I just get so bored with lectures. I want to be in there learning from my own experience. So that's my take on why it has, what do the rest of you think? I'd love to hear why others think it has become accepted.
Agree. So yeah, I would love to hear from, Fatima, Mahshid, if there's different, you guys are in different places, and Izumi and Philippe. So what has your experience been?
I think, Jane, you really touched on it. It's the universal aspect of it. I mean, it fits any culture and any place, because at the end of the day, it upholds the same ideals that every society and every culture, I think that's the reason why it speaks to everyone. And I know Noha and Omnia, when they speak, they've come to Jeddah and they've spoken to parents here and in our school, they always tie in the prophetic tradition. And it just, people find it really clicks for them, because it's everything that we're supposed to be doing, have forgotten over the years. And it's what, it's what our religion has told us to do, but we've kind of just forgotten about it. So yes, it's true. It's very much something that has been really well done and put together with all the activities and everything. But it's still like the concepts, like you said, Jane, it's all been there all along, it's very universal.
Yeah.
Thank you. Does anyone else? Okay, Philippe?
For me, just to add that we are all human. So basically, it's the same for everybody. Even though we have different cultures, the human being is the human being all over. That's my explanation. It's a guess.
Yeah, I was thinking the same, Philippe, that we all want to be good human beings, and we all want to raise good human beings. And those universal values carry through, I think, all cultures. Anything, Mahshid or Izumi, you want to add? Yeah, Izumi?
Yeah, and also what I really love about this is that we talk about feelings, and feelings have no borders, nor culture, nor nationalities. And that's another universal part which speaks to everybody. We may have a different vocabulary or identity on the feelings, But what comes from the heart comes from the heart. It doesn't come from the head. And that I love. And I think that's why it's so universal and speaks to everybody.
Thank you. Thank you. Mahshid, I'm going to ask you a question, if that's okay. You've been working in schools for quite some time, and you are a leader. You have a leadership position within your school. As a school leader, what impact has positive discipline had on your school community, both from the parents and the teachers and the students?
Well, I have to say that my exposure to positive discipline was quite an unorthodox one, because usually you would go and attend the workshop yourself or you send your teachers. But in 2016, I made a crazy decision of sending 8 parents to positive discipline and expecting them to finance half of it themselves. And this was quite a crazy approach, we can say. And once we came back, none of us were the same people. And it transformed the whole school community, because we were supposed to hold 2 workshops in that year, led by the parents, and they held 16 workshops. And the way they prepared for those workshops, the passion, the commitment, and it could have never been as effective if it had come from me. And the biggest impact it had on the community was it opened my eyes as a leader that we underestimate the power of parents. We always look at parents and parents council as a committee where they organize some events and they do fundraising, and then they kind of ping pong the blame of education. And once you really employ them and you use them as messengers, they can transform and do the work for you. And what I witnessed in the workshops which were led by these parents was unbelievable, the way they connected with each other, and they kind of were speaking the same language. If it came from me, it would be like, now she knows better and she's telling us how to do this. So it transformed the whole school community. And then I decided to do it for early years and then for the other teachers.
Wow. Amazing. That was
amazing.
it was what a group. We had a really great time together. Thank you. And Fatima, I want to talk about your let's continue talking about parents for a little bit. How do you support your parent community with regards to using positive discipline, especially during the current situation that's happening? Oh, you're on mute, Fatima.
I think there's no time better than the time we're in and the challenges that we're in right now for parents to, for us to share with parents some of the tools. And, we've been virtual since March. So it's been very, very challenging for our parents and our students. And what we did is from the very beginning, from March, from the start of the lockdown, we started doing workshops for the parents. And a lot of them had already taken the positive discipline. A lot of our parent community over the years, because we've run it every single year, sometimes twice a year, they've already taken the training. But, bringing the whole schooling to the living room was quite for a lot of these working moms, it's a very traumatizing experience, and a lot of them just forgot their tools and they forgot their toolbox. So we did this kind of COVID survival kit type of a session where it just brought back everything, agreements and guidelines and all these little things that everyone knew about, but they just kind of needed to be reminded. And for some parents that were new to it, it was kind of like a crash course for them, just to get them to kind of deal with all of these stresses that they never had before. So, we did videos for them on how to make a routine. They had of early years, myself, we did different kind of videos, and just to help them, because some of them, even though they know that they should have a routine, they weren't. And with COVID and having your kids home all the time, you can't survive if you don't have some kind of structure and routine, especially since kids at school are used to that. They're used to having a very structured routine in their day. So we found that, a lot of parents, they fed back to us afterwards. They said, this was really helpful. We need more of this. So again, this year we're planning to have one in, I think, 2 weeks time. So I think it's just opening up these channels and letting them know that we're here to support them, because I think that's what parents need the most at this time, is just, especially if they have more than one child, and and if they're working parents and have their kids at school. So, and I think the other thing is we did a lot of surveys and a lot of questionnaires, and giving them the opportunity to tell us what do they need. But on top of that, Joy, is we continued with our curriculum, like with the positive discipline curriculum throughout COVID. We continued with the Bugs and Wishes time, the classroom meetings, and a lot of parents, although they knew we do this at school because they hear about it from their kids, they actually got to witness it firsthand because they're sitting there, you know, by the side of the child and they're watching the kids do Bugs and Wishes. And some of them did videos for us, and because we asked them to send it in, because the homework was, you know, do Bugs and Wishes when you have a problem with your sibling and send us a video or send us a picture. So suddenly we have all of these great, you know, resources. Before, we never thought of making videos of this type of thing. And so we started sharing it on our social media, started sharing it within our school community. So even other schools in our community started seeing what our school is doing, how it is that we teach social emotional learning. Because we have this reputation in the city that we really focus on developing all sides of the child, and we really focus on the kids' personalities and social emotional learning, but nobody knew how we were doing it. So with COVID, it was nice because they got to see it. And, you know, I'd get emails from parents saying, I've just witnessed a classroom meeting. This is amazing. This is what, you know, this is what this is what I'd like my husband to be doing in his meetings in his office. You know, these types of skills that the kids are learning, how to have a criteria for a solution. That was one of the things that blew a lot of parents away, is the fact that solutions have a criteria, you know, and the fact that they had to be helpful and related. And so it's been wonderful for our parent community. I think as much as there's a lot of stress, I think there is a silver lining.
Yeah, I you know, thank you for sharing that, Fatima, because when parents are able to see how well classroom meetings work for students, for building community, for problem solving, it also gives them that buy-in to why, and we all know how important family meetings are. We know that it's probably one of the greatest tools, right? And yet, you know, we don't always do them consistently, but it's nice for them to have that experience, that if the children are doing it successfully in the classroom, it allows them to see how it can happen at home. I'm noticing that I think we lost Jane, and I'm hoping she'll be able to get back on. I just want to make sure Ali is aware to look out for her coming back on so he can turn on her camera for us.
Yes, Joy, I'm here.
Fantastic. Okay, so I'm going to skip the question that I was going to ask Jane right now, and I'm going to, Mahshid, I'm going to go back, and this can be really for anyone, and Izumi and Philippe, feel free to kind of, you know, chime in as well. I know that all of you have attended many positive discipline workshops, and I'd love to hear what has made the biggest impact on your life, both personally and professionally.
Well, on a personal level, that was the very first workshop I attended. I got to know myself, and I got to realize why I do certain things and I don't do some other things. And it changed my whole perception of myself. It was an eye-opening experience. And professionally, I have to say, positive discipline is like the holy grail of education, because we all, as educators in our roles as parents, as teachers, as principals, we know what we want, but we never know why, and we do not know how. So what positive discipline did to me was it crystallized my why. It was so clear to me why I want to do this. And the tool cards and all the activities, the experiential nature of them, it gave me a step-for-step manual on how to reach that goal. So it is a package. And the whole simple, basic philosophy of belonging and contributing together and being kind and firm, it does magic to anybody in any setting.
Mm-hmm. I want to build on that and just share that I would agree that it is like incredible. It works, and it's hard, right? It's not easy. I really want people watching that maybe don't have the experience, or even people that are trying to implement positive discipline. You would probably know this. We know it works, and we know it works in the long term, but it really takes more time and effort to apply than the typical tools of rewards and punishment that we're used to. And I want some of you guys to share as well. I just want to let people know who are watching. I can see there are a couple of questions in the chat in the chat box. We will get to those, so thank you for asking them. You can also use the Q&A to answer a question, just to make sure it doesn't get lost in the chat box, and we will get to some of those as we go. Would anyone else like to share what positive discipline, what impact it has made on their lives, both personally and or professionally? Philippe?
You will hear, for those of you watching, you might have been hearing a lot of PV trainer or educator who just said, my life has been changed by positive discipline. And really, it is true, at least for me. And it's hard, but I wouldn't say hard. It needs practice and work. And then you get encouraged by yourself. And the best encouragement I got was from Jane Nelsen. The very first time I saw her, she told me, you should trust the process. And that helped me a lot, and I'm still transmitting this as well. And the second thought is, trust yourself, trust the children, trust the parents. And in simple, just trust people, and then you'll see miracles.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, Jane, you're back. Great. Izumi, did you want to pick up on that?
Yeah, well, adding to all that was said, and it has changed my life since I resigned from my 20-year-old company and all that to do this on my own. So you can see how much impact it's had on me. What I would say, what really, in addition to what you said, what really clicked me was I found a community. I'm from a very diverse background. I'm an expatriate. I live in a country which is not my origins. I'm married to 2 different nationalities. My son has also 3 nationalities. My sister married a Senegalese. You know, we're just so multicultural, and to find a place where you're so nowhere and everywhere at the same time, I was looking for that, and I found that with the PD community.
It gives you that belonging, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It gives you that belonging, and it gives you the significance. You're contributing to a better world. Right. It's just, it's incredible. Yes. So it fulfills those needs. Yes. So Jane, we're actually sharing how positive discipline has impacted our lives, both personally and professionally. If you want to build on it, or you want to share based on anything you've heard.
I just wanted to say something that was discussed, that Fatma was discussing before I got lost. And the thing that I have found is that so many people get Zoom fatigue from watching so much Zoom, but when they do the positive discipline workshops, they don't, because of the experiential activities that we have found work. And going in, just like the community, going into the breakout rooms with each other. And I'm always so excited to see who I'm going to be with, because it could be anybody from any country. And so that sense of community, that even on Zoom, we're interacting. Somebody said, for a lot of Zoom workshops, I get a lot done. I can do my email. But for positive discipline workshops, I just really pay attention because I'm so actively involved. And that's another thing that's quite amazing, I think.
Great, thank you. You know, I'm seeing a question and I think it's relevant to what you're sharing, Jane. Someone is asking, how can we enforce positive discipline successfully remotely while having parents watching the whole time, while giving lessons without getting negative feedback? So I think Jane has almost just answered that question, in the sense that when we give parent education, when we're working with, whether it's parents or teachers or students online, we're really, we're connecting, but it's the experiential nature. We're not just talking at them and lecturing them. If you've seen any of the workshops today, you would have seen that there's an experiential nature. Even on a webinar where you're not able to see the participants, you can still make it experiential. Fatima, yeah.
If I can add, because I think the teacher, I think it might be a teacher that put this down. I think maybe what their fear is if you use positive discipline and the parent is watching, that they might, I mean, I think this is the way I understood the question, is that, you know, that parents are watching and that they, without getting negative feedback, as in on the teacher. And I have to say, I have 2 examples where we had incidents where I had to, you know, a child in assembly who had used the teacher's face as a background to his backdrop. And I basically had to, I pulled him out into a breakout room and had to speak to him about this. And this was a parent who really didn't think very highly of positive discipline and thought that it's very permissive and it's just, kids just need to be punished, you know? And so when the parent actually watched the whole conversation between me and the child, and how, you know, I spoke to him about how he can fix this and how, what's the solutions that he had, how do you think that the teacher feels after having his face pasted, you know, as a background. And this is a grade 4 child. He thought he was being funny and all his friends thought it was hilarious. And it's not a teacher he particularly has a very good relationship with, obviously. So the parent afterwards, you know, contacted me and said, you know, I was there, I didn't interrupt, but I saw and heard the whole conversation. And I just wanted to let you know, it's not, positive discipline is not the way I thought it was. That, you know, although he didn't get punished, we were able to fix it and we made an agreement. And, you know, he had another meeting with the teacher and they spoke about how they can fix things. And then he told the teacher that he would be his helper in the class next time and let him know when people are off. Anyways, they made this whole entire, you know, solution focused approach rather than punishment. And the parent kind of, you know, saw very how positive it could be. And the same instant, we've had the other way where parents feel that positive discipline is too firm and, you know, you're humiliating my child and all that type of thing. And we've had many teachers who have had to have, you know, one-on-one conversations, pull out a child into a breakout room, like you said, Jane, and have conversations. And those parents got to see how much the dignity of the child is maintained in these instances. You know, they're never shouted or screamed at or humiliated in front of their peers. And I think that's one thing, whoever the teacher who asked this question is, at the end of the day, if you use positive discipline, there won't be any parent complaining, because there's nothing about the approach that's disrespectful or shames the child or humiliates the child. So you should be fine.
Thank you. Thank you for building on that, because I read it differently. So thank you, Fatima. I think that was really helpful. Would anyone else like to add based on their experience? Or we can go to another question. We have lots of questions. Philippe?
I just wanted to add, even though if you practice positive discipline in front of a class, in front of people, you might make mistakes, but we've got a tool for that. And you use the tool and then you're modeling that it's okay to make a mistake. So you feel really empowered by what you're using. The more you practice, the easier it comes, because you know little by little instinctively how to use your tools.
Thank you, Philippe. And I think I want to, Jane, when you were booted off of Zoom, I was about to build on, Fatima was talking about her experience being online and during COVID. And I wanted to ask you about, why do you feel, or do you feel that positive discipline is even more relevant during this pandemic? How has it even been even more beneficial?
Well, I think it was Mahshid that was talking about that they forget that the tools like creating routines, having family meetings. See, I thought that during this COVID, a family meeting should be done every single day, maybe just for 10 minutes instead of every week. And so I just think that it really emphasized that, wait a minute, instead of just panicking and going into our despair, that we say, oh, we've got tools to help us deal with that.
Yeah. And I think that's true after when Fatima, when you were talking about, you know, even if parents had routines before COVID, they had to revisit those routines because now kids are home, parents are working from home, everything changes. So it was going back to the basics, going back and laying the foundation again, just in a different way. So I think that, you know, going back.
I had to make Zoom agreements with my daughter because I was on Zoom all day in meetings and she would just come into my room. So, and I'd be in the middle of a meeting and she'd come in and she'd be like talking to me about stuff and I'm in the middle of a meeting. So we actually made Zoom agreements and she put them on my door and it was all her ideas. And I can't tell you how useful that was for me to be able to continue to work from home. And when parents saw like just how simple these tools could be used, it was helpful for quite a few parents.
Thank you.
Well, and even the thing of spending special time, it's like learning that if you just spend 5 minutes with your child, really special to make that connection before you have to go back to work. It's so powerful.
Well, you know what? I want to build on that, Jane, because that was one of the questions, and I want to throw this out there to the whole group, and so that each of you can share your experience. What, Fatima, you mentioned bugs and wishes, and some people watching know what you mean by bugs and wishes, and others are going, what is she talking about with bugs and wishes? So you might want to share that with everyone. And Jane mentioned special time, and we've mentioned family meetings and classroom meetings. What activities or tools have you found to be the most beneficial during these challenging times? So who would like to start? I'm sure all of you can share at least one would be great, because then we're adding to everyone's toolbox. So who would like to share their favorite one? Yeah, Mahshid.
Well, I love all of the tools, but there's one that I like in particular, and that is solutions versus consequences, because it works with everyone in any situation. If people could master this and being kind and firm, I think we would not have half of the problems of the world.
Can you just share a little bit when we look at what's the difference between solutions and consequences for those who may not have the experience?
Well, by default, when something goes wrong, we want to punish the person and we want them to suffer from this. And we want to see what is going to be the consequence of what you just did. Whereas this is not always relevant, reasonable, respectful, or helpful. So if you can learn the skill of focusing on real solutions, which have all of these 4 characteristics, then the person is empowered, the problem is solved, and then you get a paradigm shift from focusing on an uncomfortable consequence of a bad activity and the person feeling horrible about themselves to learning from this thing that has happened.
Right.
Thank you. And I just put that in the chat box for those of you. Respectful solutions are respectful, reasonable, related, and helpful. And solutions are always consequences. But consequences are not always solutions because they're not always helpful. Jane, would you like to build on that?
Well, first of all, I want to say that usually when people say consequences, they're trying to disguise punishment, that they're really using punishment. But the other thing, it goes back to the basic principles of treating everyone with dignity and respect, including children. But the idea that when you're working on solutions, the kids have buy-in. They're feeling connected first. You make the connection before correction, and then the correction is a solution, which is what I love now is that brain science is showing us now that this is the most effective way long term, because children are really, well, what I say, if when children experience a lot of firmness but not kindness, they may become capable, but they lose their own self-esteem. On the other hand, if they're treated permissively, they may feel loved, but they haven't learned responsibility and that they're capable and that they can give back. So the thing is that the fact that the brainstorm is brain research is proving that what we've been teaching is the most effective is pretty exciting.
Yes, I would agree. And who else would like to build on? I saw in the chat box, I saw that Azumi puts routines have been one of her favorite tools, and Huda shared meetings. Azumi also said self-care has been another. These are all positive discipline tools. Fatima put guidelines. Is there anything else you guys would like to share? I would say number one, hand on heart, family meetings has been probably, it's always been my favorite tool, but it's probably been the most helpful. And my daughter doesn't do them yet. She can be around, but she's only 3. But for my husband and I, it has been just the most it saved us, especially during the first lockdown. So if you're not familiar with family meetings, we have a chat. It doesn't matter which book you read. I think there's a chapter on family meetings or class meetings, which gives you the whole format and structure. Fatima, did you want to share another tool or expand on one that you've already shared?
One thing during lockdown with 4 kids and 2 older ones who are quite can be quite feisty with one another, especially with all the frustration of not playing any sports or going out or being around any friends. So they got to the point where, you know, sometimes they just want to kill each other. So one thing that was really helpful is bugs and wishes. And because they're a little bit older, we use I statements or I messages. So, you know, when they get really frustrated, you know, their dad would be like, okay, whoever is going to be the next person to start a problem, they're going to stay in their room. And obviously, you know, they didn't choose that solution. They chose the solution of iMessages because it's something that they're familiar with, and it's very helpful. And I'm talking about like a 12 and a 9-year-old. And they would, when he would, you know, my son would get agitated because his sister is really good at, you know, poking at him. And so he would tell her, I get really annoyed when you do this and this and that. And when he hears it in that way, and I find it really helpful for even between me and my husband, between my children, I've seen it in schools, just be very effective when kids use that opportunity to communicate. So it's part of the lessons we do with the students weekly. And we encourage the teachers to, you know, use that tool whenever any children, you know, you have a table in the playground when they used to come to school, where they would go and resolve their you know, the peace corner, and the kids would organize the tools there, and the staff were trained on that. But I think the iMessages is a great tool. Or when they're small, they love bugs and wishes. So it bugs me when you pull my hair, and I wish that you would, you know, tap me if you want to get my attention instead of pulling my hair. So things like that, like exposing the kids to these types of tools. I've put down the ones that I've found in lockdown. Like you said, family meetings, you know, routines have been crucial for a lot of parents. I think everybody's touched upon the really great tools. There's 52 tools. So, I mean, yes, rewards and punishments are not, you know, are not things that we use in positive discipline, but there is so much that replaces that.
Thank you. And for those of you watching, bugs and wishes or iMessages, the purpose is to teach children and adults to express their feelings and their needs. It's about really effective communication. And when we communicate effectively, we're able to connect with the other person and open up that dialogue rather than shutting them down by saying, don't do that, or stop doing that, or, you know, where it causes a disconnect. And I can see there was a question that came in. I'm going to throw this out there to anyone, okay, to answer. And I think this comes up so often. So Anum asks, what is your stance regarding giving rewards according to positive discipline? Are they helpful or not? And what is the long-term effect? Who'd like to take that first?
Well, I can tell you what I learned from Joy. Use them as candies. We do not give candies to people all the time, but from time to time, they're nice. So that would be like the quick tip.
Jane?
I would just like to add to that. It's like when we were first teaching the difference of praise and encouragement, people were never giving any praise. And so many children would say, you never say you're proud of me. And every child wants to hear that their parent is proud of them. But what you just want to watch for is that they don't start depending on that. So I think it's very important that we know that, I mean, don't we all love a little praise once in a while? It's just unhealthy if we start depending on it. So I love that analogy of, you know, even I would rather, as I've been thinking about it, I would prefer using something besides candy now, because candy is not the most healthy thing. I would rather use something that's rare, but still essential. I haven't thought of what it might be yet, but I think that it's better than just candy to give a little praise once in a while.
So I want to even focus on, for those of you watching, you know, we talk about in positive discipline the difference between praise and encouragement. And I also want to talk about, when it comes to rewards, a lot of people ask about sticker charts and using tools like that for motivation. And it's something we don't advocate, because we want children to really develop an intrinsic motivation. We want them to do the right thing because it's the right thing, because they feel better about it, and because they're helping the community, right? So who wants to talk a little bit about an alternative to sticker charts? How do we increase the intrinsic motivation? Fatima, I see your hands. Go ahead.
This is a topic that I find in particular, it was one of the real aha moments for me when I got introduced to positive discipline, because I was a teacher who very much embodied kind and firm without knowing it, but I was very much reliant on rewards. And there was something about it that didn't sit well with me, because I always found it eventually it wears off. And it gets to the point where the kids don't care anymore. And that bothered me, because it gets to the point where 1 point doesn't make a difference. You need to make it 5 points. And then you get to the point where it has to be 10 points. And that always didn't sit well with me, but I didn't know what was the problem with it. But having like working with a lot of parents over the years and doing a lot of workshops, I've learned from so many parents just the damage they've had done to them because of rewards and too much praise and constantly being given money for everything they do, and getting to the point where like it wasn't enough. And I feel like, and I love the question. It's a great question, and it really highlights the point. What are the effects long term? Because the thing is, it works at the moment. Rewards work at that time, and it's effective, and that's why some teachers find it really hard to let go of rewards. But if you look at the long-term effect, and there's so much research out there within the Positive Discipline Association, as well as, you know, books like Drive, and so many books that talk about just the damage of a lot of rewards. And I think, you know, I've learned so much from parents along the way, as well as teachers who have shared their stories of their own children and their own experiences that have just shown the kind of damage you can do when you overpraise and over reward, because then the child's not doing it for themselves at all. And one particular story I'll just share, Joy, really quickly, was of a student who was a swimmer, and he was a great swimmer, but this coach was just always praising him and making him think that he was like an Olympian, you know. And then when that coach left, he quit the swim team. And it was because he wasn't really doing it for himself. It wasn't like, because the next coach came along and he was just giving him realistic things like, oh, you beat your own time today. Fantastic. You know, that's great. But because he was so used to the overly exaggerated praise, he didn't want to be there anymore, because he felt the coach didn't like him as much, you know? And I think that's the danger. Too much praise causes, kind of skews our view of the world. And I think that's the problem with rewards and too much praise.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you for sharing the example, and also sharing the example of Daniel Pink's work and Drive. And, you know, we look at, even in our empowering people in the workplace and in the corporate work, we know that even people say, but life, you receive monetary, right, rewards, bonuses. And even in that research, it showed that there was a limit to the motivation of even a financial reward. And do you know what motivated people more? Encouragement and connection. That is what really motivated. You know, that's Gemeinschaftsgefühl, as we say. I don't say it so well. And that community interest and having that encouragement. So it's something to think about. And I do think it's very important that, going back to what Jane said, that a little bit of praise is okay, right? It's just, we don't want children to rely on it. We don't want them to do something and look at you expecting, where's my praise? You know, they're needing their fix, right? So I'd like us to go into another question, because a lot of people are starting out maybe more with positive discipline. This might be the first introduction to positive discipline today that they're having. And what advice, and this is open to any of the panelists, what advice would you give to parents and teachers who are just starting out implementing positive discipline in their homes or in their schools? What would be your advice that you give them? Okay, Mahshid?
My advice would be, do not look at positive discipline as a product. It's not something on the shelf that when you have a problem, you go fetch it and it fixes everything. Or it's not a pill that you put in water and then everything is, voila, gone. Look at it as a process and know that it's a bumpy journey. Know that it's very difficult. Know that it doesn't work all the time, but still it has such transformational power that it is worth trying until you get to your final destination.
Thank you. Jane?
You know, this just reminds me of so many people come to positive discipline think, oh, I thought I was going to change my children, but I learned I had to change first. And so, you know, we talk about all these skills we're going to teach kids, but the adults, parents and teachers have to learn the skills for themselves. They have to learn new skills to teach their kids new skills. And it is more of a way of life. And that's why it fits for people, because I don't remember which one of you mentioned, it just speaks to your heart. And when somebody just embraces it themselves because it fits for them, then it becomes a philosophy of life that fits for them, not something that has been imposed upon them that they should do. And I think that this is what we also want for our children, that that it just becomes their philosophy of life. But I will tell you one thing that was really interesting to me is my daughter Mary. We were doing a seminar once, and she said, I didn't know I was learning all these great skills until I left home. And when I went with roommates who didn't pick up their own things and didn't take responsibility and were very disrespectful. And she said, then I realized how much I had learned. So we don't expect our kids necessarily to love it, to be responsible when they're children. But the long term, we're just into the long term as well, but it's also more respectful in the moment.
For me, Joy, Joy's dropped off. I was just going to share something, Janie, that you said to me, and I think you've said it to a lot of people, is, you know, trust the process, and it's a journey. Because that's one thing for, if you're a parent, if you're a school, anyone who's trying to implement this, it is a process, it's a journey, it takes time, and you just get better at it with practice. And the more you do it, and the more you get exposed to the tools, and the more you use the tools, the better you get at using them, the more you notice your language. Because a lot of it, I think, Jane, is just a change in some of the things we say. So I think there were some concerns or some comments in the chat about praise. It's not that positive discipline doesn't believe in encouragement. Encouragement's very, very much the same. It's just that it makes the person do it and realize what they're doing. And I think for me, this is one of the most powerful tools that positive discipline, and one of my favorite activities, is just seeing the difference between the person who receives all the praise and the person who receives all the encouragement, just how empowered they feel. So it's not that, you know, in positive discipline, we don't believe in making people feel good about themselves. But I think it's things like competition and unhealthy competition and envy and kind of that perfect child and that perfect student in the class that other students begin to kind of dislike. It's just, it really empowers them to feel like I'm doing a great job, and I know that, but it doesn't mean I have to think I'm better than everyone else. And you know, my sister, who goes to an Ivy League school and who was at Harvard for a while, told me, you know, it's amazing when she learned about positive discipline, she told me it's amazing that I think that everyone who's in these Ivy League schools has just been praised far too much. And when they get to Harvard and they get to these Ivy League schools, everyone is just like them. And they can't trust anyone, and they're on antidepressants, and they feel so miserable because of the fact that they haven't been encouraged. They have been praised all the way through. And I just think that with positive discipline, you just have to give yourself time. Give yourself time and just pick one tool at a time that you want to focus on, instead of trying to overwhelm yourself with so many things. And remember that a lot of it is common sense, and a lot of it you might already be doing. And I think that's something that a lot of teachers, you know, I always tell them when we train them, when they join our school, is there's so much that you do that's great, you know, and even parents, there's so much that you're doing that's wonderful. Don't think that, oh my God, all of a sudden I have to forget everything I've been doing my whole life and I have to adopt, like you said, a product off a shelf. And it's not like that. There's just so much good that everyone has. They just have to tweak. I feel it's like a tweaking process rather than a, like, you know, overhauling process.
Well,
Thank you.
I would like to speak to that for just a minute too, because for people who are reluctant and to accept positive discipline, I was reluctant. I said I was a yes but learner. Well, what if they get away with too much, or what if you're, you know, I did the what if, and so I have more patience for people like that in a class, because it's a paradigm shift that can be difficult. But what sold me is if I kept trying it, I thought, okay, I'll try. and that it would work. And that when it didn't work, I had missed an important piece, like maybe not making the connection first, or being too firm without being kind, instead of combining those two. So it's a learning curve for adults, and sometimes some of us go kicking and screaming all the way.
Thank you, Jane. Sorry, I got kicked off, but I'm back on, and I know we only have a few minutes left. Jane, I would like to ask you, people would like to know, you continue to develop new tools, activities, workshops. Can you share what you're currently working on and what you're excited about?
Well, first of all, I just love what people are doing with positive discipline in the workplace, empowering people in the workplace, which is what, and you mentioned couples, because couple meetings, because we do KJR. We are working on a social emotional development tool cards for kids that has a guidebook that goes with it. And also working on conversations with kids about the internet. So to help parents have these, there'll be tool cards with conversation guides for parents to have to help their kids through this internet generation. And and a book for empowering people in the workplace. We're working on that. So it never ends.
Thank you. Thank you. And I want to share a comment. This isn't a question, but it's a comment that came in from Sarah. She said, I don't have a question, but I want to say that I work in the Human Rights Commission in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and I'm a mother of 2 boys at Nün Academy. I took the course of positive discipline and I learned a lot. I wish to expose everyone to this method because I see a huge similarity between positive discipline and human rights. Mm-hmm. So if all parents in schools adopted this method, the number of violence would drop. And I want to thank you for sharing that, Sarah, from both your personal experience and your professional. And Ali, I don't know if we have time. There's one more question in the Q&A. Do we have time to answer that?
Let's go for this question and then we wrap it up. And I thank everyone for being here this long positive discipline day. And let me tell you, I didn't feel the time.
Thank you. Okay, I would agree with that. So someone, Tariaz asked, how can we get kindergartners to be aware of their actions and for them to learn that they should want to do better? So essentially, how can we motivate kindergartners, young children? Who'd like to take that one?
I would just like to start because when I was an elementary school counselor and we had all the teachers in every grade level, K through 6, doing class meetings every day. And we had some visitors coming that they were writing a project on decision making for kids, and they decided they couldn't do it until they were in 2nd grade. They went in and watched our kindergarten kids using all the skills and focusing on solutions. And they said, well, we're going to have to go change our project. So it works very well with kindergarten kids. They love it. It just takes time for training. That's one of our tools, take time for training.
Thank you, Jane. And people always ask, at what age can you start using positive discipline? My husband and I started before my daughter was born, and we started with our relationship and each other. Mm-hmm. And from the moment our daughter was born, we were practicing the language so that by the time her brain could understand, it was normal, this language. And it doesn't mean we don't make mistakes. We make tons, but thankfully we have a tool for repairing our mistakes. And our daughter's 3 years old and she knows how to apologize. Mm-hmm. And it's not by saying I'm sorry. At even the age of 3, she knows to state what she's done. I threw the food on the floor. That wasn't nice. I'm sorry. And then we focus on solutions, which is the most important step of repairing. So I just want to encourage you that it's step by step, and it's really taking time for training. And even when they're young, the more you practice it, the more you model, the more it becomes normal for them. And by the time they understand it, you're good at it, right? Doesn't mean you're perfect, but you're good at it. Jane, do you want to build on that?
Jane would like to add something. So Jane, go ahead.
I just want to point out that there's a reason we have a positive discipline for the first 3 years and a positive for preschoolers. There are things that are developed. I taught child development for 10 years. And it really upsets me sometimes if parents try to do things that the children are not developmentally and their brain has not developed ready. So at 4 years old, for example, is when children do really, really well at family meetings, except that my guess is that you'll have Chloe in family meetings at 3. So
She's not yet. She's not yet.
yeah, but usually there's just something that happens to the brain when a child turns 4. And one of the reasons people start having a lot of power struggles with their kids is these kids are ready to use their power in useful ways. And so family meetings is the way that, I can still have power in a way that's useful and respectful.
Thank you.
So, Joy, let me share with our attendees our website and our YouTube channel, and let them know that the sessions of today, they are already there. If you missed our Arabic session, our French session, our English session, you can watch them here. Our website is full of ideas, and we will continue talking about positive discipline in 2021. Joy is coming to Dubai, so you are welcome to come and to learn, and you can check all the details from the website. I'm going to share all these via the chat. I would like to thank you all for this beautiful and successful day. Christine is just mentioning it was a great, inspiring day. We're so happy to hear this, Christine. And by the way, Christine is based in Geneva or in Switzerland for Philippe and Izumi. Thank you for being here also with us in this last session, Philippe, Izumi, Fatma, Mahshid. It was great to see you today. Dr. Jane, it was my pleasure also to collaborate and to work with you. And Joy, see you in Dubai, January 2021.
Inshallah. Thank you, everyone.
Inshallah.
Lovely
Okay.
to see everyone.
Thank you.
So voila, that's it for today. 7-hour online live on Zoom. We are done. Stay tuned for all our events in January 2021. We have a lot of new things to be shared with everyone, and we stay in touch. Bye-bye. Have a good day, good evening, or maybe good night, depending on where you are on this planet.
Thank you. Thank you, Ali.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. Stay
Thank
well.
you. Stay well. Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone. Bye.